thanks for having us here today. I want to see if you want to start off by telling us a bit about yourself and the key to them.
Okay, first of all, you're very welcome. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Training for Women Network. I've had the honour of being here for a long, long time and working with a group of the most talented people that I think are on this planet. Me personally, I have always been interested in equality for women. I was a mature student. I went back to university in my late 20s. So I because Training for Women Network is an education, training and development, that's our core work. I felt that I have an understanding of people who have maybe dropped out of school or dropped out of education and decided maybe through different means to go back. So yeah, I'm delighted to still be here. And as I say, I have a very talented group of people that work alongside me.
And do you want to tell us a bit about the work of TWN prior to COVID over some of the projects that mentioned?
I suppose we have quite a lot of initiatives. I mean, we work with women from 14 right through to, late 80s. And we've never moved outside of the niche of education, training and development. Some of our work involves research, some of our work involves writing reports on different areas, like, for example, ethnic minority women in Northern Ireland. We also did a report working with women as victims of the Troubles. But our core projects at the moment, we've just finished a peace programme, which was aimed at over 1,200 women. We're the lead partner in the Women and Community Transformation Programme, which is part of the Fresh Start Agreement. Looking at ways to get women looking at ways to encourage people to move away from paramilitarism and create a society that's welcoming for everyone. And we have a PASS project, which is aimed at young women between 16 and 24 who are looking to get back into education, training or employment. We also have small projects. I mean, I could tell you, Michael will probably be here for an hour, but we have small projects as well that would be aimed at the arts, that are aimed at education, or aimed at history. And all of that was going on. This training room would have been bunged every night. It would have been full of people coming in doing the different parts of the training. I suppose the one that we're most proud of at the moment is the Women and Community Transformation Programme. And so far we've had over 800 women coming through a series of training, building community leaders and building community cohesion. And in a sense, creating an army of people of women who want to see change. But we also offer training from ILM level 3 to Institute of Leadership Management level 7, which is chief executive level. So before COVID, we would have been extremely busy. We work in partnership with lots of organisations throughout Northern Ireland and the border counties. Nothing that we do is done just by us, because we're not that arrogant to believe we know what every area needs. But we do have a lot of... Pre-COVID, we would have been full. This place would have been full day and night of women coming in and out to do training. I suppose we're a bit unique in a way that although we're a women's organisation, we work with men who work with women. And I suppose that's the distinction between ourselves and other women's organisations.
And how were you affected by COVID? How have you had to adapt some of your projects?
Yeah, I mean, we were badly affected by COVID, like everybody else, I suppose, in the world. The only difference was we took a week and we planned what we were going to do and how we were going to try and work through it. But because ours is a lot of face-to-face training, obviously that couldn't happen throughout COVID. And a lot of the women that we would work with, particularly through the Women and Community Transformation Programme, it would have been quite quiet work. It would have been work that was done in a very quiet way and an unassuming way. And as I said to you, there was over 840 women in that project. Over 150, I think, of those were our responsibility. So when COVID hit, we had no way of bringing those women into the building, and we had to start thinking, how can we make this happen? And one of the ways, people talk about Zoom and they talk about the different channels. One of the big problems we had is not everybody has a computer, not everybody has internet. A lot of our women would have been working off their telephones or off their mobile phones. So we had to start thinking, how do we do this? how do we make that woman feel safe when she walks into this building? She's safe, there's no outside influences. If she's sitting at home, she could be sitting with someone who's an abuser, who could be on a paramilitary organisation, all sorts of things. Some of them were very apparent very early on. Some of them, I suppose, we learnt on our feet. And one of the things that we did do was to try and beg, steal, borrow devices that would help women. That could be from a tablet to a computer, and to look at ways of how we could get the internet into their houses, be it through MiFi and giffgaff cards and stuff like that. So again, I suppose we went on the hunt for a little bit of money to do that, and also used some of we had a great IT guy who built computers out of nothing, and from ourselves then we were really trying to get those devices out to people as quickly as possible, that we could still engage with them, because engagement was very important for us. Some of our women were suffering from, paramilitary control. They were suffering from domestic violence, things that we were ill-equipped with prior to COVID to deal with. So yes, it hit us badly in that sense. But I suppose everybody was the same. But our bread and butter is training and development and education, and obviously that's much easier if it's face to face. Yeah, I mean, I suppose our thinking is that not every organisation we work with is a women's centre. In fact, the majority of the women that we actually work with have never been in a women's centre. So working with groups, I suppose in a sense TWN promotes and encourages ambassadors, for the want of a better word. And one of our partners is headed up by a male. Any organisation that's looking to put education or training in for women be the male or female. We have no issue with that at all. So is that enough, Michael? I think as an organisation we always have. We have men on staff, we have men on our board, and as I said to you at the beginning, we're looking for equality, and I believe that equality is being able to work with both male and female, and to promote promote education for women, and that's another avenue, because some men have more understanding, and are probably not popular for that, but have more understanding of policy and the needs from an educational perspective for women. Exactly. Oh my gosh, I suppose there's been so many different instances where we've just laughed. I think that's part of our humour in Northern Ireland. We try and find the humour in most. I mean, I'm thinking back to very recently when we did start to open up again. We're a lateral flow centre, so anyone who's coming into the building is expected, if they're more than 15 minutes here, to do a lateral flow test. And one woman came in and we said, you need to do a lateral flow test. And I think she thought we were going to shoot her. She screamed around the building. She was running around in circles going, no, I can't do this. And the language was a bit choice on it. And we're sort of saying, okay, that's fine, but we're going to have to ask you to wear a mask and a shield when you're coming into the building. And it just struck me. It's so far down the road with COVID. There's still kind of that fear of the tiny wee white stick. And that was funny. We've had stories that would be quite horrendous. We've been talking to women. One woman took 3 of my staff, talking to her on text and chat because she wouldn't talk to us, who was suicidal. We're not equipped in a sense to deal with that. But through 3 of us talking to her over, I think it was about 4 or 5 hours, we managed to talk her into speaking to a counsellor. And I thank God she's on the road to recovery. There have been instances. It's interesting because when you're training people via Zoom or via some of the other, we can tell if there's someone in the room now by that woman's body language, by her stance, by how she articulates what she's saying or how she interacts with us. So that can be difficult because you can't say it. You can't ask, is everything okay? When you know probably isn't. So that's difficult. And we have had humorous tests. I mean, we did a large conference recently, and it was via Zoom, and we had a small audience. And I don't know what happened. We had about 85 people zooming in. But I don't know how this turned out, but it turned on to this one woman who was eating a cream bun. And she was really enjoying it. And she didn't know that there were probably 100 people watching her eating her cream bun. And no matter what, we couldn't get her off. And we couldn't get her attention. So that was funny. Probably more funny for us than it was for her. Exactly.
I want to ask, part of the projects that you've been working on is to kind of address the coercive control of women by paramilitaries. Could you expand a bit on that project?
Yeah, I mean, the Women in Community Transformation Programme, there are 4 partners. There are ourselves, there is Intercom up in North Belfast, there's Cooperation Ireland, and there's Foyle Women's Information Network. Way back when the Fresh Start Agreement, there was 8 overlying areas that were deemed to be high in paramilitary activity. From that, we broke that down into 27 locations. We're not there to teach women to tackle paramilitarism per se, but we're giving them the skills to become leaders. Now that can be through education, getting a better job, looking at ways that women could make changes in their community. You know, we've had, during the recent trouble over the protocol and stuff, some of our women were out there very quietly trying to dispel the violence. So we're not there to tackle the paramilitarism, the paramilitaries. That's not our role. But our role is to help women become almost like an army of leaders. Now we've had women who have had death threats. We've had women who have been threatened. We've had women who have stood up. And you know, I so admire their courage, and I so admire what they have done. And a lot of them will tell you it's because of this programme and because of the support, not only of ourselves and our other organisations, but the support of other women. I think for us, COVID certainly has, because we can now do a blended learning. You know, I'm not an advocate for Zoom, but it also means that we can expand to people who normally maybe down in Fermanagh who couldn't travel up here to do a course can now link in with us on Zoom. So I think that's useful. It's also made us learn to record, or not made us, but encouraged us to learn to record some of the events that we've done we normally wouldn't have done. One of the things that I suppose I'm most proud of as well is that the Committee for the Status of Women, which takes place in New York every year, obviously it's been cancelled with COVID, but we were able to do what we call a conversation piece, and that's beamed across 197 countries. We never would have even dreamed of doing that 2 years ago, but we were able, it was like we were standing in the room in the United Nations presenting Northern Ireland and the role that women play in that, and that was done in this room via Zoom and via recording. So things like that, there's a positive to it. I just worry that it can become a lazy way of doing things as well. And, you know, we're human beings and we all need to interact. But yeah, definitely the blended approach and talking to people makes it that little bit easier, particularly if there's some distance away.
Just the last question here. What's your message for the community as hopefully we're continuing to come out of lockdown?
Be careful. I mean, we're extremely careful here, as you know, Michael. When we asked you to take a lateral flow test, I think there is a responsibility on each of us to keep each other safe without being ridiculous. We have been very lucky in the nearly 2 years of COVID. None of our staff have, thank goodness, contacted COVID or had COVID. And I think it's just a question of being careful and realising that this is a killer. I mean, COVID is killing people. And anything that you can do to protect yourself and, for me, my staff and the people that come in and out of here. So my message is it's good to get back to normal, and I encourage that. And And we've been doing that. We've been having people back into the building, but we have taken measures and precautions to protect them. And I think if we keep on doing that, because we're going to have to live with it, whether we like to or whether we don't.